Hello there my music lovers, I'm Josh from Audiophile Heaven and today we are having a review on the PALAB M1 Minis. The main reason I'm doing this review is that I'm doing it again. This is the second time I'm filming the video for the PALAB M1 Mini. This is because I must be suffering from some kind of dyslexia at times because I did an entire video where I called it the PALAB M1 Mini and it is the PALAB. It is much simpler to pronounce, I don't even know I complicate sometimes. The PALAB M1 Mini is a portable DAC/headphone amplifier with both balanced and single-ended outputs. It has two USB inputs, one for data/power and one for power only if you want to use a separate power input, and it is priced at $500. So let's get down with the unboxing. This is one of those units that is really hard to unbox because this case is so stuck. I mean, right now it isn't anymore. I did this a few times, you can imagine. Comes with a beautiful manual. You know, I have to remember every single thing I tell you in videos. I don't know if I mentioned this enough, but I don't have a prompter or a screen in the back where I'm reading all of this. It's just me remembering everything, like knowing everything. I'm not like a newspaper where someone has time to edit and go through the entire content. I just have to remember everything and know everything. I'm like that expert friend that knows all of those stuffs. The M1 Mini comes with a USB cable, Type A to Type C, and an adapter from Type C to Type A, so you can use this cable with smartphones, and an optical to coaxial adapter. The unit looks like this. It is very tiny, also very light. It is MQA enabled, so if you want to have MQA support, this is the DAC/headphone amplifier. It has two headphone outputs at the top, one balanced in 4.4mm and one single-ended in 3.5mm, and as I said, two power inputs at the bottom, one for power and one for charge/data. There is also a coaxial/optical port, which is quite useful if you want to connect it both to your computer or to your console like PlayStation or Nintendo consoles, Xbox consoles. Everything should be supported by the PALAB M1 Mini. The best part is that you have MQA support on a unit that is this tiny, and the sound of the PALAB M1 Mini is the reason why we are all here. Like, we aren't here for the looks. It looks very Spartan, very industrial. It is very small and simple. You can actually strap this to a smartphone. This is how tiny and portable it is. It has those pointy corners though, which may be uncomfortable at times. It has been designed in New York and the company takes great pride in that. It also has this beautiful display at the front where you can see what volume you are at and go through the inputs. This is pretty much the entire function of it. I would recommend theoretically using a separate power input if you have a power bank, which tends to be very quiet in its power, but I don't really think it is a necessity to use one because it has a really clean, really good power input by itself. You don't really need to use a separate power input. I don't know how, but it filters the power very well. In their paperwork, they say that I have 3 separate headphone circuits, but I have 2 headphone outputs, so there must be 2 headphone circuits for the balanced input and 1 for the single-ended input. There is not a lot to talk about. It is tiny, it's portable, fits in my fist. I could use it as a weapon. I would hurt myself more than I would hurt anyone because it has those corners that would dig into my hand if you are planning on using it like this. About the sound, the PALAB M1 Mini is one of the most beautiful sounding DAC/headphone amplifiers in the entire world, like in the entire universe. It's amazing in the sound. The sound is extremely smooth, like a Chord Mojo, but with more detail and more vividness and more forwardness and more punchiness, like a Chord Hugo, for example, or a Chord Hugo 2. I'm comparing it to Chord Mojo because it is the main competitor it has. It is considerably more detailed and deeper sounding with better soundstage and better overall refinement than FIO Q5S or iFi XDSD. It is better than all of those. Compared to Chord Mojo, it would have the hardest time to beat Chord Mojo because Chord Mojo is like the thing that most people go to even for stereo systems. And I do think that they can replace that with the PALAB M1 Mini. They can replace the Chord Hugo with this one. The PALAB M1 Mini has a very clean, very crisp and very detailed sound, but it is very smooth in textures. Everything is fluid, everything flows freely. It is a very effortless sound and it has a thicker, slightly warmier, slightly chubbier, slightly more bumpy bass. It has a tone of force in the sub bass, which pairs very well with pretty much every single EM and headphone I threw at it. It has a good amount of driving power. It is not extremely good at driving headphones, so something like the HiFiMan Araya stealth version is not exactly driven well from it, but it has enough driving power for more for most other headphones. Pretty much everything that is easier to drive than the HiFiMan Araya Stealth Magnet should be easily driven from the PALAB M1 Mini. At $500 it has a ton of competition. As I said, it actually manages to deliver a cleaner, more detailed and smoother sound than FIO Q5S. The sound is not just smoother like it lacks treble, it's smoother in the textures. Everything is much more effortless and fluid, which is a very pleasing type of sound. It is better sounding than iFi XDSD as well. iFi XDXD tends to be more forward and tends to be brighter in the overall sound, but the PALAB M1 Mini is considerably more effortless, has a better overall timing and a better resolution, also a better detail retrieval. iFi XDXD is great for rock and for metal, but the PALAB M1 Mini is great for everything combined. Like I enjoy rock and metal, I enjoy jazz, I enjoy every single type of music out of it. It's great for classical too, because it has a good body and weight to each musical instrument, which is really enjoyable. And all in all, I do think that it is quite awesome for any musical style. Comparing it to Chord Mojo, which is the hardest comparison, I would say that it is much better than Chord Mojo because first thing, it doesn't have a battery, but it manages to have the same clean and crisp sound as if it did. So it has power filtering inside, which is quite good and quite effective, but you don't have to worry about the battery going out, which has been an issue for Chord Mojo owners, and even I mentioned that in the review. You may have some trouble if the battery goes out, and Chord does not replace those for free, especially if you are out of warranty. You need to pay for having the battery of your Chord Mojo replaced. It has a balanced output, which Chord Mojo doesn't, and iFi XDXD doesn't really have a 4.4mm balanced output either, although FIO Q5S does have a balanced output. The PALAB M1 Mini is great for EMs as well as headphones, because with EMs it has an amazing amount of driving power. It can drive pretty much every single EM I threw at it, including Campfire Ara and Campfire Atlas. But I mentioned those two Campfire EMs intentionally because it also has a pretty low overall background noise and hissing, so it has a pretty low output impedance. This is important because when you are driving EMs, you don't want to hear a lot of background noise, and most EMs are quite sensitive to it. For a DAC/headphone amplifier that has a ton of driving power, I was actually a bit concerned about the PALAB M1 Mini having a slightly high output impedance and it having background noise, but it really doesn't. It really is okay with EMs too, so you don't have to be restricted to using headphones only. It draws quite a bit of power from your smartphone or from your laptop, so if you have a smartphone that has a very limited battery life, you should take that into account. You can't expect it to be a very power saving DAC/headphone amplifier at this driving power. I mean, it can drive headphones like the Ultrason Signature DXP or Ultrason Signature Studio. The best sound from the PALAB M1 Mini can be found on the balanced output. It has the best overall dynamics, best control, best driving power, best punch, best overall depth to music, and it just sounds best on over the balanced output. I would not really recommend using the single-ended output for most practical purposes. It is just not worth when you have the balanced output. Like, you can get a very cheap, very affordable, very high quality balanced cable. I reviewed some of those too, so there are balanced cables that are affordable too, like $100, even $50. You can get a very good balanced cable for the PALAB M1 Mini. I once did the mistake of purchasing a single-ended cable for the Audeze LCD-MX4 at that time from a now known French maker, and it came out broken and they did not reimburse me or something. So yeah, that was my loss. At the end of the day, I was happy with the experience because I got to learn some things about cables and about sounds. You may be wondering whether it is worth it to invest in a high-end cable, and I would say that it depends on what you're using as a headphone or EM. Now, if you are using something that is up to the mid-range or up to $500, $100 on the cable is the most I would recommend you to pay, because if you are paying more, it's best to invest in a better EM or better headphone at that point. If you are above the $500 price range, it is best to invest in a more expensive cable, especially for EMs that come with the single-ended cable only, because those devices, everything that is newly released and has a balanced output will sound considerably better over the balanced output, and that is something to take into account. The MQA feature of the PALAB M1 Mini is cool. MQAs tend to have a different sound from normal music, and I think that boils down to a different master sometimes, because I don't really think that the format only could change the sound so much. The sound is quite different for some MQA files. They just sound thicker, they sound smoother, everything just sounds better mastered with better overall dynamics. So yeah, I do think that it is the mastering, not just the MQA format. They want to monopolize on better masters. We have no other option but to get MQA compatible devices like the PALAB M1 Mini. At the end of the day, if you are looking for a really high quality DAC/headphone amplifier, because this has a DAC inside too, it is not just an amplifier, it is a DAC because the entire data comes in through the Type-C input. If you are looking for a DAC/headphone amplifier for your headphones, for your IEMs, or even for desktop, I totally recommend the PALAB M1 Mini. I also recommend you to subscribe to Audiophile Heaven for more awesome and interesting content. I really would appreciate if you could leave a like on this video. Also, I have a PayPal link in the video description if you feel like donating. Every single cent helps me. I really thank you for watching and I hope you have a lovely week in there. We'll see each other really soon. I promise. Bye bye.